Okay, so this is now part three of the cash flow bullets. Bob is with me still, and in the last section, we talked about equipment and we talked about debt and the different effects that that can have on your cash and cash flow planning. And now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about equity and offering equity in your company, maybe to a management team or to multiple employees to help bring some cash into the balance sheet, right, Bob?
That's exactly right. And we've seen a lot of people years ago that wanted to do ESOP plans. Some of those were very successful, some of them not as successful. In the current corporate tax environment, they're not as prolific now because the tax rates are much lower. The advantages aren't as many as there used to be. So, what we're recommending to clients is that they offer some sort of potentially at the beginning a non-control equity to key employees or family members or even outside investors where they can start to participate in the growth and value increase in the company. We have a client now where we've recommended to them, and they're studying this pretty hard right now, is that there be a combination um, that the equity will be given to some key employees and then
Mm-hmm.
matched with their own contributions going forward. So, out of the growth and profitability increase of the company and the bonuses that key managers receive, they're going to be allowed to reinvest that bonus in a matching program. They may purchase 1% of the company and then be matched with another 1%. Then next year it might go to 1.5%. And this is a system whereas the current owner of this profitable company wants to phase out over a period of time. He wants the employees to then own the company as he's owned it, and then he wants to go start even another company. So this is sort of a win-win-win for everybody involved here, and they're trying to draft those plans right now and go through the mechanics of how that would work. But the takeaway is key managers that have some equity in the company tend to stay longer, be more productive when they're vested financially and not just given stock, but it's a combination of gift and purchase so that they have skin in the game and then it becomes a retirement vehicle for them as well.
Well, one thing you mentioned there was, the owners phasing out over a period of time. I know we've seen a few instances where it's always been the owner's plan for it to become an employee-owned company, but they kind of think they'll just wait up until their point of retirement, and then, poof, okay, I want to sell it to you now. Hand me the money. And rarely is that going to occur that way. You've really got to be thinking about these things, 5, 10 years out on the horizon to line it up and put that exit strategy, normally that owner's retirement strategy, into place.
No, that's exactly right. And you want to give key employees, and in some instances, all employees. We've seen companies that want to do this with all employees. You need to give them financial and emotional investment in that
Mm-hmm.
plan over a 5 or 10 year period. Because, like you said, if you just drop it on them 90 days before you want to retire, everybody's sort of shell shocked. One, that you're actually leaving, and two is, well, how are we going to buy it? And well, I've never thought about this before. But these are long term conversations and long term plans that need to take effect. So, owners, when they're 5 and 10 years out, need to be thinking they've done tax planning, they've done estate planning, but they haven't done what we call operational planning. How do I transition this successful company so that it's successful either to my children, other family members, and or key employees? Because you want the goose that laid the golden egg to still live and be able to produce more eggs, not take it all at once and then it's over.
Well, moving on from equity, we've got backlog here. So, what do you mean by backlog? Is this a backlog of work to be done? Is this a backlog of projects? We're just talking about shifting the dates to improve cash flow.
Well, it is in fact your backlog or your book of orders, either firm or pending that you have with clients. So if you're in sort of a downturn, we often say let's go to our orders and let's see which customers can we accelerate that orders, keep our people productive, and be able to satisfy a customer sooner than what they thought they were going to receive their order. So it's an old trick. We've used it for years, but is accelerating those projects or products into an earlier time period. Sometimes a customer will be willing to pay more to get their product or project sooner. Sometimes we offer a discount if it's not something that they've thought of, but they're willing to bring it up. We're willing to pay to bring that up a few points off the top. So there's two ways to work that, but it does help us stay busy when we've got work, but it's not deliverable yet, according to the original terms. But most customers aren't going to argue about receiving something early. So it's a prime source of pulling work into the present that's out there hanging for the future.
Well, and to your point, they're not going to argue about receiving it early. If anything, they may argue about paying for it earlier than they had planned on. But that's where giving up a couple of points, you immediately think when you say giving up that it's a losing situation. But this is a case where taking a couple of points off the top really makes it a winning situation for something that would otherwise be a losing situation.
That's right. And hopefully, and we haven't talked about it today, we'll talk about it in some future videos, is how important your price model is and how important it is to understand your customer profitability and your product and segment profitability. So you've got some room to negotiate. And we always want to have room to negotiate because situations and economies change over time. Sometimes they change very quickly, as we found out in 2020. So understanding what those opportunities are and where they're at make a big difference. And we don't want to be in a position of having to lay off valuable employees. We don't want our production processes interrupted. We want to minimize that. So having a little room, everything's negotiable, and we want to use what we have to our advantage and to the advantage of our customers and clients.
And I know one thing that we've talked with nearly every client that we work with about, Bob, is the importance of a growth plan. Everyone wants to grow, but often they don't have the plan in place for exactly what that growth is going to look like.
Right. Everybody wants to say, hey, we're going to grow 10% this year. Great. What does that mean? So our good buddy Bob Camp that we work with is really good at putting down specific growth plans. What are we going to sell? What are we going to sell more of? What should we sell more of? Who's our clients? Who's our target? How do we differentiate ourselves in the market? All those things go into a good, solid growth plan. And if we haven't thought about those 25 areas, key areas that we need to develop a growth plan, we're not going to get there. Maybe we get there 1 year out of 10 through luck, but the other 9 we have to deal with. So having a specific plan is key. And how are we going to get there? What are the tactics? Time is limiting. We only have so many salespeople. We only have so much production capacity. So how do we put our best foot forward every day? How do we make our time count that we're going to the right clients with the right product or service at the right pricing and terms? All that goes into the growth plan because we can't waste time on low percentage opportunities. We have to pick what our high percentage opportunities are and go concentrate on those. It's more of a rifle approach than a shotgun approach. We have to have focused effort on the things that are going to be key to growth.
Well, speaking of growth, the other side we've seen of that is acquisition opportunities. And of course, that's going to be a big thing in the coming months and the next couple of years with everything that's happened with COVID. And we've actually had a couple of clients that have been able to strategically make a purchase, an acquisition, but then generate immediate positive cash flow from that company that they acquired.
Yes, so many companies that have struggled, and we're seeing the extremes. It seems nobody's in the middle. Either people are doing really well at this time or they're not doing well at all. So there are opportunities out there. And sometimes a stronger company can pick up a weaker company that has a good core business, good customers, and good management and processes, and help fund that company sort of back on its feet and able to produce very positive results in a short period of time. Some good companies have just run out of cash, and they need an infusion to get back on their feet. And often that's not a significant infusion. That's just enough to bridge for a few weeks
Sure.
because they have a good backlog, they have good customers, they know what they're doing, they're a leader in their field. Those are all things that acquiring companies are after.
Let's talk about AP, accounts payable, and boy, the importance of what we pay and when we pay it. I don't know if there's anything on these cash flow bullets that can be as important as your AP practices when it comes to cash flow, Bob.
Well, that's right. And we've seen companies manage this incorrectly both ways. Some are postponing vendors way beyond when they should, others are paying very too quickly. So, again, we talk about optimization. Ideally, we want our accounts receivable to be at the same drumbeat or the same heartbeat as our accounts payable. That money coming into the companies coming in at the same pace as money's going out, and that can vary by industry depending on the vendors and the customers. But don't be afraid to negotiate with suppliers. We generally try to pay most companies in the 38 to 45-day range. That's where they all seem to be tolerantly comfortable. Um,
Hmm.
and I always tell clients, and I've had to go in and manage their accounts payable before, I say, always tell the truth. We're in trouble. We don't have the cash flow right now. Call those vendors, explain it to them, explain what our plan is, how we're going to recover, when we're going to pay you, and then pay them when you say you're going to pay them. You can't afford to lose credibility, so you have to do what you say you're going to do. And that's been a process that we've put in place for years, and it's worked very, very well. But important to keep accounts payable and accounts receivable on the same pace. When those get out of balance,
Absolutely.
it affects our net working capital and spoils our cash flow.
Well, that's why we've got them listed as kind of the bookends here on our cash flow bullets. I mean, when you've got your AR and your AP in sync, it makes everything else a lot smoother in between.
That's right. And vendors want to work with you because they want to maintain you as a customer. You know, it needs to be a profitable relationship for both. That's what keeps the economy going. And we don't want to mistreat vendors. We just want to keep them in balance with our customers. Sometimes we have to go negotiate with customers. Sometimes we have to go negotiate with vendors. But keeping them in balance is really the key.
Well, this wraps up our cash flow bullet series. We hope you found some of this information helpful, and maybe just even a couple of bullets that you think, I can go back and apply that tomorrow directly into my business and our operation. Any questions? You can find all our contact info either here on LinkedIn or at www.robertlwebb.com. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Davey.